If you've ever taken your car to an MOT test centre, you'd know that an MOT tester does a variety of checks on your car, all to get that highly anticipated pass certificate, or the dreaded MOT fail. Well, what you might not know is there's actually loads of things they check on the car, things that could land you a fail on your next MOT. So we have this Mercedes CLA 45 AMG, and it needs to go in for an MOT. And Luciano, our certified MOT tester, is going to take us through the step-by-step process of everything they check to help you know whether your car is going to pass an MOT before you take it for a test. And the first thing he's going to test for is the emissions.
You just stuck a thing inside the exhaust. What is that?
That's an emissions probe, mate.
Is it?
It measures the amount of CO that comes out of the exhaust.
Okay.
And you see, as long as you see all green, it's hunky-dory. The bottom one's got to be as close to 1 as possible. That's always normally 1 or 0, and that's always 0. If the emissions is good. If it's got too much CO, it means it's creating too much carbon monoxide.
Which is bad.
Which means you've probably got an O2 sensor fault, or you're using wrong fuel, something along those lines. It's a clever machine.
Yeah.
But obviously if that fails, then it fails. But this is going to be passed.
And what's this you're doing now?
Headlight aim test.
Using this little machine to basically
check that the headlight aim is correct, which is. That's perfect. There's a gauge inside here that it shows you red and blue lines. You see red and blue lines inside there?
Yes.
Very faintly. It's meant to be in between the 2 blue lines.
And if it's not?
And if it's not, you've got to adjust it.
Will they adjust it on the test?
You can do. So if it needed adjusting, I could adjust it, and I'll do what's called PRS.
PRS.
Which is Pass Rectified Station.
Okay.
Which means at the time of test, I've fixed the problem that it had.
Okay.
To get it passable. So it will print you out a fail certificate and the pass certificate.
Okay.
Because it's technically failed on that problem, but you've amended it or fixed it, so now it's passed.
So testing the seatbelt.
Seatbelts.
Pullage.
You've got to make sure all of them, that they fasten, that they hold, and at the same time, they release. So, in the event of an emergency, if you had to, you can obviously get the seatbelt off of you. Check the boot opens, which it does, slowly. Number plate lights you need to check, but I checked that when the car was running. Fuel filler cap, you've got to check the seal inside there. It's not perishing or worn.
Is it? That's part of the test as well?
Yep, it's part of the test. And it's mandatory that the passenger must open from inside and outside.
Okay.
If it doesn't, failure. Mirrors, you only have to have 2 mirrors. Like vans, they don't have a centre mirror, they only got side mirrors.
Yeah, because you can't see through the back. So.
Driver's mirror has to be there. That has to be mandatory, and then you can have either one or the other. So even if I didn't have a glass there, it's not a failure, because I've still got a rear view mirror. If I didn't have a rear view mirror, but I had the passenger mirror, still a pass. It's just an advice.
Fascinating.
Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even though the car was passing with flying colours, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Because yesterday, Luciano had to deal with some mechanical issues with the car before bringing it to the test.
It needed some TLC. We had the engine light on for the timing chain, stripped it down, and the chain was so loose I could just literally pick it up and down. It just basically turns the engine. So that is what turns the camshafts, to turn the bottom, the crank, to obviously create combustion, to start the car. So if you don't have one, the car ain't turning.
What's the possible outcome of having an engine that's not in time like this one?
What can happen is you can bend valves, which means obviously you might need new pistons, you're going to need a new set of valves, you need to get the head skimmed. Yeah, loads more work.
You basically saved the car, basically.
Basically, yeah.
That would have been
basically, first stage is what we're going to do. We're going to put a chain on it, put it all back in timing, put the camshafts down with the cover off, spin the engine by hand, and obviously we're going to see how it reacts. And I pull.
Bosh.
That's it.
You can go away, old chain.
And it all failed because of that tension of the... Shouldn't go back. It should only stick out forwards.
Oh.
Yeah.
The timing chain tensioner does what it says in the name. It puts a set amount of tension on the chain to avoid it slipping, but also to make sure the chain isn't too tight to the point that it would cause damage. But the main issue with this one is that it had lost its tension, so the chain was hopping, causing all sorts of issues.
So it acts like a suspension.
Yeah, sort of, for the chain. It just takes up any slack that there may be.
Luke's then connected the new chain together, similar to how you would replace a bicycle chain.
It's in timing now. We'll put the timing cover back on, clean that all up. Everything that's in the boot, put it in there. Let's just see if she runs. Oh yes, she is running. Oh, what a relief. 10:40 and I've been here since 10:30 this morning.
But now the timing chain was sorted, it was time to carry on with the MOT.
So you've got to check obviously drive shafts, you've got to check all mechanical components, bushes, you've got to see for any wear, any play, you've got to check tyres, you've got to check rims to make sure they're not cracked or buckled. If they are, obviously it's an advisory. But at the same time, an MOT, it's a discretion. It's up to me to say to you as a customer, yes, obviously, I think this passes, or no, I think this fails. But obviously, you have to abide by the testing guidelines. So normally, what I do is I'll put the jack underneath the jacking point. Yes. I won't jack it up just yet. I'll have a quick look around to see if I notice anything obviously extraordinary. Like, you know, if we've got, I don't know, cuts on tyres or something like that. From that point onwards, I'll tell you whether or not, yeah, it's good or not.
I noticed with some MOT testers, I'm under the impression that like you have to like leave them alone to do their thing, not get distracted. They seem very in the zone.
That is actually...
That's what I saw.
Please do not disturb an MOT tester.
And yeah, I'm here with a big camera. Hello mate, so what's this? What's that?
Can you turn your camera off, please? Make sure we've got no cracked alloys, no bulges on the inside of the tyres.
Yeah.
And whilst the car was up in the air, it was time to address another issue that Ray and Luciano discussed earlier in the car.
Can you hear that?
Oh, was that the diff?
That's the diff. Can you hear that? Listen, look. Can you feel
dunk, 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 dunk.
Yeah.
Is that because it's lacking oil or it just needs new oil?
I think the oil is old. Normally, I've done them in the past when I used to work for Mercedes.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mercedes-Benz. Yeah. So we just normally do an oil change.
Yeah.
We change the sump plugs as well, and normally that sorts it out.
Okay.
But before they start work on the differential, how does it actually work?
Power comes from the engine, which goes through like a flywheel that goes into the gearbox. The gearbox then sends obviously the power through a prop shaft to the final drive unit. This is the final drive unit that will turn the rear wheels.
Yes.
And obviously inside there is basically it's like a transformer. So it's like the power goes this way to then split into gears to send it that way.
Yeah.
And additionally to this, the differential also allows the wheels to turn at different rates when going around corners. This avoids them losing traction control when manoeuvring around.
So this is the thing in question. He's going to change the oil. There we go.
Come off like a glove. Fill plug. Yeah, you can smell it.
Oh.
Put your mince pies on that.
Hey! When I touch it, I touched it with my nose, bro. I was like, egg and fart combined, bro.
And once it was emptied, Luciano put on a new oil drain plug, tightened it up and torqued it to spec. And with that, it was time to put in the new oil.
You see it doesn't smell so burnt?
Oh, still has a kick to it though.
It still has a kick, but it doesn't smell burnt.
The oil had to be carefully measured out to ensure that the correct amount of oil was going in. He used the pumping device along with the tube that was pumping the oil upwards and into the diff, allowing him to put oil in without any trouble.
A little single finger action, bro. No.
And then lastly, he put in the brand new oil fill plug. Fingers crossed it was going to work properly now.
No. Oh, there you go.
Official 15 newton meters.
He gave it a quick clean and it was back to the MOT test.
Make sure obviously there's no broken springs.
No cracks.
It's a failure. You want to make sure the brake pads they're okay. Not a lot of wear. They're low, obviously you advise it. Biggest thing, people don't really check tyre sizes. Got to have the same tyre size.
All around.
No, not all around necessarily, but across the same axle. So if this is 235/35R19, that should be 235/35R19.
Okay.
If that's a 245/35R19, it's a failure. Even though it's by 10, it still makes a dramatic effect on the performance of the car, the safety.
You can handle differently, basically.
Well, exactly. Check the brake hoses, make sure there's no splits or kinks. Steering gator for the steering rack.
Yes.
Make sure that's okay. If it's front wheel drive, obviously. Check the drive shaft boots. Make sure there's no nails or anything in the tyre. It's advisory as well. Check the play, left and right, top and bottom. Spin the wheel. Make sure the brakes are not binding. So tyre size, 235/35R19. That's correct.
So we're good.
This always happens on Mercs.
Nice when it flops out.
Yeah, just like to do a nice little good deed.
Yeah,
Get back
come
in.
on.
Always make sure it's got all the wheel bolts.
Is that a mandatory thing as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
One wheel bolt missing, failure.
Is it?
Yep.
What's that testing? Is that a little
What we're
that tool?
testing is a top mount. So obviously, I'm doing that. If the whole thing moved up and down, you know the top mount's warm.
Failing, yeah.
Exactly. 235/35R19. This is a Goodyear. It's got 3 different brands of tyres. Pirellis, Michelin, and Goodyear.
But as long as they're the same size.
As long as they're the same size, that's all that matters. We're looking good. I want to check the history of the MOT.
To see if there's any specific things that point out that you can look at.
Yeah, but it's always had clean passes, so tyres, nothing untoward. Near side rear, so passenger side rear.
Yes.
Tyre close to legal limit on inner edge.
Okay.
Close to 1.6 mil mark.
So
it's
that's
about on the
where you
borderline.
wanna-
So
yeah.
just going to advise that, so at least obviously he knows to get that done. That's another problem with Mercs. Always the A classes. Star goes missing. I had that on my one.
That looks dead.
It looks terrible. doesn't
Like,
it?
it looks so dry.
It looks terrible because it gets so hot and it's so close to the turbo.
Glue just comes off, flies off.
Yeah. Right. While you're there, you can pass me the brake roller tester,
There you go.
so I can do a roller testers.
And it shows the efficiency of the brakes.
The machine is designed to test how well the brakes work by measuring the resistance of the brakes against these little cylinder rollers. And through this, it would calculate a rating on this gauge.
It's a pass.
Pass with an advisory.
With an advisory.
Tyre 1 close to the legal limit.
Fair enough.
See there? Starting to get a bit thin on the inner edge. That's just basically nearly on the legal limit in the centre. So I've advised that pass.
But thankfully, the car passed. So now you know some of the things an MOT tester looks for, so make sure you note down these things when you're next going for an MOT and make sure you rectify them to avoid a failed MOT. Guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Did say to you, I am going to buy another car. You also saw me drive an LC500 Lexus, which didn't quite make me feel amazing. So I thought, you know what? Let me bring out the daddy. So I've now got an LFA to drive. That's how you change the gear. Oh, God, smoke.